Princess Urth of the Veltar Empire stood on the balcony of her crystalline palace, watching the three purple suns set over the capital city of Nexera Prime. Her silver skin shimmered in the fading light, and her four arms moved gracefully as she adjusted her ceremonial robes. Today marked her third anniversary of marriage to the most unusual being in the known galaxy, a human named Marcus Chun. The Veltar were known throughout the Andromeda Spiral as the supreme warriors of space. Their empires stretched across 47 star systems, and their military might was legendary. They stood 9 feet tall, possessed incredible strength that could crush steel with bare hands, and their technology was advanced beyond most civilizations' wildest dreams. For over 2,000 years, no enemy had successfully challenged their dominion, which made Princess Zarth's choice of husband all the more puzzling to her people. Marcus was small by Veltar standards, barely reaching 6 feet in height. He had only 2 arms, which seemed almost comically insufficient. His skin was a strange peachy color, and he lacked the natural armor plating that protected Veltar from physical harm. When he first arrived on Nexera Prime as part of a human diplomatic mission 3 years ago, many Veltar nobles had whispered that he looked more like a pet than a potential spouse for their princess. But Zarth had been fascinated by him from their first meeting. While other species cowered before Veltar might or tried to impress them with displays of their own power, Marcus had simply smiled and offered her a small blue flower he'd picked from the palace gardens. He told her it reminded him of her eyes, which were indeed a striking shade of azure that was rare even among her people. "Your Highness," came a deep voice behind her. General Throtkar, her father's most trusted military advisor, approached with obvious concern etched across his battle-scarred features. "We need to discuss the situation in the Outer Rim." Zarth turned, her long silver hair flowing behind her. "What news from the frontier?" "The Ravagers have begun moving again. Our scouts report massive fleet movements near the Kethmore Nebula. Intelligence suggests they're planning something big." Throkar's 4 arms gestured toward a holographic display that materialized between them, showing star charts with ominous red indicators spreading across several systems. The Ravagers were the only force in known space that truly threatened the Veltar Empire. An ancient race of cybernetic beings, they consumed entire worlds to fuel their ever-expanding machine consciousness. They had appeared from dark space 50 years ago, and since then, they had been responsible for the destruction of dozens of civilizations. "How long before they reach our territory?" Zarth asked, though she dreaded the answer. "At their current rate of advance, perhaps 6 months. Maybe less if they discover the hyperspace routes through the Veil of Stars." Zarth nodded grimly. The Veil of Stars was a region of space-time distortions that had long served as a natural barrier protecting the core Veltar worlds. If the Ravagers found a way through it, they could strike at the heart of the Empire before the military could fully mobilize. "Where's my husband?" she asked. Throkar's expression grew even more troubled. "Lord Marcus is in his workshop, as usual." "Princess, with respect, perhaps now would be a good time to send him to safety. The human homeworld is far from the conflict zone. His people could protect him while we deal with this threat." The suggestion made Zarth's hearts beat faster with anger. The Veltar had 2 hearts, and when both were racing, it meant serious emotional turmoil. "You forget yourself, General. Marcus is my chosen mate and a citizen of this empire. He stays where he belongs, at my side. But, Princess, he has no combat experience, no military training. He spent his time here studying our archives and tinkering with old technology. What use could he possibly be in a war?" Before Zarth could respond, a soft chiming sound indicated someone approaching through the palace's security fields. Marcus appeared in the doorway, and as always, Zarth felt her anger melt away at the sight of his warm brown eyes and gentle smile. "Sorry to interrupt," Marcus said, his voice carrying that strange accent that still charmed her after 3 years. "But I heard we had visitors with news from the frontier." General Throtkar straightened to his full imposing height, making Marcus look even smaller by comparison. "Lord Marcus, we were just discussing military matters that concern my wife and her people, which makes them my concern too." Marcus interrupted politely, but firmly. Despite his small stature, there was something in his tone that made even the general pause. Zarth moved to Marcus's side, one of her hands finding his. The Ravagers are mobilizing for another assault. Throkkar believes they may have found a way through the Veil of Stars. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his eyes studying the holographic display. Zarth had learned to recognize this expression. It was the same look he got when he was working on one of his mysterious projects in the workshop she'd given him. How much do we know about Ravager technology? Marcus asked finally. Enough to know it's beyond anything we can counter directly. They adapt to our weapons faster than we can develop new ones. Their ships regenerate damage almost instantly, and their numbers seem endless. But they're still machines, right? Even really advanced ones. Yes, but what difference does that make? Marcus smiled, but there was something different about it this time. Something that made Zarth look at him more closely. For just a moment, she thought she saw something in his eyes, something sharp and calculating that she'd never noticed before. It makes all the difference in the world, General. Or should I say, all the difference in the galaxy. The human turned to leave, then paused. Princess, would you mind if I use the Imperial communication array tonight? I need to send a message to Earth. Of course, but Marcus, don't worry about me, love. I just need to check on something. A little research project I've been working on. After Marcus left, General Throkkar shook his massive head. Princess, I mean no disrespect to your husband, but this is not the time for human curiosity and research projects. We need to prepare for war. Zarth watched Marcus's retreating figure through the crystalline walls of the palace. Something was different about the way he moved, the way he'd spoken. In all their time together, she'd seen him as gentle, kind, and brilliant in his own quiet way. But tonight, for the first time, she wondered if there might be more to her husband than she'd ever imagined. General, she said slowly, what do we actually know about humans? About their history, their capabilities? Throkkar waved a dismissive hand. They're a young species, barely a few thousand years old. They've only had space travel for a few centuries. They have no significant military victories against advanced civilizations. They're pleasant enough, but hardly a warrior race. And yet, Zarth mused, they were the first species to approach us as equals rather than supplicants. They showed no fear when their diplomatic ship entered our space. And Marcus, she trailed off, remembering their first meeting again, but this time seeing it in a new light. He hadn't been intimidated by her people's reputation or their obvious physical superiority. He'd walked into a room full of beings who could crush him without effort, and he'd acted as if he belonged there. At the time, she'd thought it was charming innocence. Now she wondered if it might have been something else entirely. Princess, surely you don't think. I don't know what to think, General. But I'm beginning to suspect that my husband has been keeping secrets. The question is, what kind of secrets does a species keep when they're surrounded by beings who could destroy them without breaking a sweat? As night fell over Nexera Prime, Zarth found herself staring at the stars with new eyes. Somewhere out there, the Ravagers were preparing to bring destruction to everything she held dear. And somewhere much closer, her husband was working in his workshop on projects she'd never bothered to ask about. For the first time since their marriage, Princess Zarth began to wonder if she really knew Marcus Chen at all. And deep in her warrior's heart, she felt the stirring of a strange new emotion. Not fear, but anticipation. Because if her gentle, harmless human husband was hiding something, she had a feeling it was going to be very interesting to discover what it was. The galaxy was about to change in ways none of them could imagine. And it would all begin with one human smile and the secrets he'd been carrying since the day he arrived in Veltar space. Marcus Chun stood in his workshop deep within the royal palace, surrounded by what most Veltar would consider junk. Old computer cores, discarded weapon components, and various pieces of technology that had been deemed obsolete filled every available surface. But Marcus saw potential where others saw waste. The communication array hummed to life as he activated the quantum entanglement transmitter he'd built from Veltar components. The signal would reach Earth instantly, regardless of the vast distance between star systems. As he waited for the connection to establish, Marcus allowed his carefully maintained facade to slip away. The gentle smile vanished. His relaxed posture straightened into something more alert, more focused. For 3 years, he played the role of the curious, harmless human scholar perfectly. But now, with the Ravagers moving toward Veltar space, It was time to remember what he really was. The holographic display flickered, and a familiar face appeared before him. Admiral Sarah Rodriguez, director of Earth's Special Operations Command, looked exactly as he remembered, sharp, intelligent, and utterly ruthless when necessary. "Hello, Marcus. It's been a while since we've heard from you." 3 years, 2 months, 16 days, Marcus replied automatically. The mission parameters required complete radio silence unless emergency protocols were activated. Admiral Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. "And have they been?" "As of today, yes. The Ravagers are mobilizing for an assault on Veltar space. Intelligence estimates 6 months before they breach the core systems." "Understood. What's the current status of your integration with Veltar society?" Marcus almost smiled at the clinical terminology. "Integration complete. I'm married to Princess Zertish, third in line to the Imperial throne. I have unrestricted access to their technology, military databases, and strategic planning sessions." "Excellent work. And the secondary objective?" This time, Marcus did smile, but it wasn't the warm expression his wife knew. It was the smile of a predator who had been patiently waiting for the right moment to strike. "The Veltar still have no idea what humans are actually capable of. They see us exactly as we intended, a young, weak species that poses no threat to anyone." Admiral Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "The Council of Species still doesn't know about Earth's true capabilities. They have no clue. As far as the galaxy is concerned, humans are newcomers who got lucky with some basic FTL technology. They think our most advanced weapons are kinetic projectiles and nuclear devices. And they have no idea about the Terran Defense Network. None whatsoever. They don't know about the quantum weaponry, the dimensional manipulation technology, or the fact that we've been monitoring their communication for the past 50 years. The Admiral's expression grew serious. "Marcus, you understand what this means. If the Ravagers break through Veltar space, they'll have a clear path to Earth. And right now, the Veltar are the only things standing between those machines and human space." "I understand completely. That's why I'm requesting immediate activation of Protocol 7. There was a long pause. Protocol 7 was something that had been discussed in theoretical terms only, never actually implemented. It was the nuclear option, both literally and figuratively. "Marcus, are you absolutely certain? Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. The entire galactic balance of power will shift overnight." "Admiral, I've spent 3 years among these people. The Veltar are warriors, but they're honorable ones. They don't conquer for the sake of conquest. They build an empire to protect the species under their care. When they realize what humanity is capable of, they won't try to destroy us. They'll want to ally with us. And if you're wrong?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking of Zartich's laugh, the way her eyes lit up when he brought her flowers from the garden, the genuine love and trust she'd shown him. "If I'm wrong, Admiral, then we're all dead anyway when the Ravagers finish with the Veltar and come for us. At least this way, we go down fighting." Admiral Rodriguez made some notes on a tablet outside the camera's view. "Very well. Protocol 7 is authorized. The Terran Defense Fleet will begin moving into position immediately. How long do you need to prepare your end?" "Give me 72 hours to begin the reveal process. I need to do this carefully. If I shock them too much, they might react defensively instead of receptively." "Understood. And Marcus?" The Admiral's expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, your sacrifice has been noted. When this is over, you'll have your choice of any command in the fleet." Marcus looked around his workshop, thinking of the woman sleeping in their shared quarters above. "With respect, Admiral, I think I might stay right where I am." After the communication ended, Marcus began pulling specific components from around the room. To anyone watching, it would look like random scavenging. But each piece had been carefully selected and modified over the past 3 years. A discarded Veltar plasma regulator, modified with human quantum field technology. An old computer core, enhanced with processing capabilities that exceeded anything in the known galaxy. Weapon components that looked primitive but incorporated dimensional manipulation principles that wouldn't be discovered by Veltar science for another 1,000 years. As he worked, Marcus thought about the conversation he would need to have with Zartich. She deserved to know the truth, even if that truth would change everything between them. He loved her. That part of his mission had become beautifully, complicatedly real. But love built on deception was no foundation for the partnership they would need in the coming war. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, assembling what looked like a simple communication device, but was actually a quantum resonance beacon. When activated, it would send a signal that could be detected by Terran Defense Network sensors from halfway across the galaxy. The workshop door chimed softly, and Marcus quickly covered his work with a cloth. Zaratich entered, her silver skin glowing softly in the low light. "You've been down here for hours," she said, moving to stand beside him. "I was beginning to worry." "Just working on a project," Marcus replied, slipping back into the gentle persona she knew. But as he looked at her, he made a decision. "Zaratich, there's something I need to tell you. About me, about my people." She tilted her head, those beautiful blue eyes studying his face. "What is it?" Marcus took a deep breath. In 72 hours, the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen would begin revealing itself. But first, he had to tell the woman he loved that everything she thought she knew about him was a lie. "My people aren't what they seem," he began slowly, "and neither am I." Before he could continue, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Emergency lights bathed the workshop in red, and the communication system crackled to life. "All military personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Ravager scouts have been detected in the Outer Rim. Repeat, this is not a drill." Zaratich's warrior instincts kicked in immediately. "I have to get to the command center," she said, already moving toward the door. "Wait," Marcus called after her. "What I was about to tell you. Can it wait until after we deal with this crisis?" Marcus looked at the covered beacon, then at his wife's determined face. The Ravagers were ahead of schedule, which meant humanity's reveal would have to be accelerated as well. "Yes," he said quietly, "but not for long." As Zaratich rushed toward her duties, Marcus uncovered the beacon and began making final adjustments. The gentle human scholar was about to disappear forever, and in his place would stand something the galaxy had never seen before. A human warrior, backed by the most advanced civilization in the known universe, ready to show the Ravagers exactly what happened when you threatened Earth's allies. The galaxy's greatest secret was about to be revealed, and it would begin with one simple quantum transmission that would change everything. The Veltar Imperial Command Center was a masterpiece of military engineering, carved from a single massive crystal deep beneath the royal palace. Holographic displays showed the positions of every ship in the Empire's fleet, while tactical officers coordinated defensive strategies across dozens of star systems. Princess Zaratich strode into the center wearing full battle armor, her four arms moving efficiently as she accessed multiple control interfaces simultaneously. Around her, the Empire's finest military minds worked with grim determination as reports flooded in from the Outer Rim. "Status report," she commanded. General Throtkar's scarred face was illuminated by the tactical displays. 17 Ravager scout ships detected near the Keth-Morn Nebula. "They're probing our defensive positions, testing response times." "That's not like them," Admiral Velhan observed. She was the Empire's chief naval strategist, with over 2 centuries of combat experience. "Ravagers don't usually scout. They just attack with overwhelming force." "Which means they're planning something bigger," Zaratich concluded. "What's our fleet strength in the Outer Rim?" Third Fleet is positioned at the Helix Station, 47 heavy cruisers and supporting vessels. Seventh Fleet is en route from the Spiral Arm colonies, another 60 ships. Zaratich studied the tactical displays, her warrior's mind calculating odds and possibilities. The Veltar had powerful ships and experienced crews, but the Ravagers had numbers and their terrifying adaptive technology. "Your Highness," came a soft voice from behind her. Marcus had entered the command center, and despite everything happening, Zaratich felt her heart's warm at the sight of him. He looked small and out of place among the armored warriors, but his presence steadied her. "Marcus, you shouldn't be here. This is a military situation that affects my wife and her people," he finished, using the same word from their earlier conversation. "I'd like to help if I can." General Throtkar barely concealed his irritation. "Lord Marcus, with all due respect, this is no place for civilians. Perhaps you could assist by staying safe in the palace archives." Marcus smiled that gentle smile Zartich loved, but she noticed something different about his eyes. There was a sharpness there, a calculating intelligence that seemed almost predatory. Actually, General, I think I might be more useful than you realize. May I see the tactical data on Ravager's ship configurations? Before anyone could object, Marcus stepped up to the main holographic display. His fingers moved across the control interface with surprising familiarity, calling up detailed schematics of Ravager vessels. Interesting, he murmured, studying the data with an intensity that surprised everyone watching. Their adaptive armor systems use quantum field manipulation to regenerate damage, and their weapon systems appear to be based on dark matter particle acceleration. Admiral Velhan stared at the human in shock. How could you possibly know that? Those specifications are classified military intelligence, and the technology involved is beyond anything your people have encountered. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his fingers still dancing across the controls. More data appeared on the display, detailed analyses of Ravager technology that even Veltar intelligence didn't possess. Where did this information come from? General Throkkar demanded. Marcus straightened slowly, and when he turned to face them, his expression had changed completely. The gentle smile was gone, replaced by something cold and determined. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority that made even the seasoned warriors pay attention. It came from my people's extensive files on the Ravagers. You see, we've been fighting them for almost 30 years. Stunned silence filled the command center. Princess Zarth felt her world tilting as she tried to process what she'd just heard. That's impossible, Admiral Velhan said finally. The Ravagers only appeared 50 years ago, and they've been moving through this region of space. Human territory is nowhere near their path of destruction. Marcus touched another control, and the main display shifted to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red indicators showed Ravager activity and conquest paths, but now new data appeared, blue indicators showing human territory and fleet positions. The humans weren't confined to a few primitive worlds near Earth. Blue markers appeared throughout the galaxy, revealing a presence that spanned hundreds of star systems. My people have been watching the galactic community for over 2 centuries, Marcus explained calmly. We've been monitoring communications, studying technology, and, yes, fighting the Ravagers whenever they venture into what we consider our space. Zarth found her voice. How is this possible? Our intelligence networks should have detected any advanced civilization in this galaxy. Only if we wanted to be detected. Marcus smiled again, but now it was the smile of someone revealing a carefully kept secret. Humans have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We found it's much safer to let other species underestimate us while we quietly build our capabilities. General Thrakkar's four hands clenched into fists. Are you telling us that humans have been spying on the entire galactic community? Not spying, General. Protecting. The galaxy is full of aggressive species that might view a powerful newcomer as a threat. So we let everyone believe we were primitive and harmless while we developed technology that could defend our interests. The tactical display shifted again, showing new information that made everyone in the command center gasp. Human fleet positions appeared throughout space, not just near Earth, but along the galactic rim, near the Ravager front lines, and even in several systems that bordered Veltar space. You've been here all along, Zarth whispered. Some of us, yes. We've had observers in most major civilizations for decades. Scientists, diplomats, traders, all quietly gathering information and reporting back to Earth. Admiral Velhan studied the display with growing amazement. These fleet positions, you have ships positioned to intercept Ravager attacks before they reach any inhabited systems. We've been running interference for years. When Ravager scouting groups disappear before reaching populated worlds, that's usually our work. When their attack fleets suddenly change course for no apparent reason, they've encountered human forces. Marcus moved to another control panel, and suddenly, the display showed detailed battle reports spanning 3 decades. Engagement after engagement between human forces and Ravager fleets, with casualty reports and tactical analyses that revealed a level of warfare the Veltar had never imagined. The technology gap between humans and Ravagers is significant, but not insurmountable, Marcus explained. We've learned to use quantum disruption fields to interfere with their adaptive systems. Our dimensional phase weapons can bypass their armor entirely, and our AI coordination networks are sophisticated enough to counter their hive mind tactics. Princess Zarth sat down heavily in her command chair, trying to process this revelation. Her gentle husband, who spent his days reading ancient texts and building simple devices, was actually a member of one of the most advanced military forces in the galaxy. "Why reveal this now?" she asked quietly. Marcus turned to face her, and his expression softened slightly. For a moment, she caught a glimpse of the man she'd fallen in love with beneath this new, harder exterior. Because the Ravagers are finally making their big move. Our intelligence indicates they've been building toward a massive assault that will overwhelm conventional defenses. The Veltar Empire is the strongest military force in this region. If you fall, the Ravagers will have a clear path to dozens of other civilizations. Including Earth, General Throkkar observed. Including Earth. But, more importantly, including species that can't defend themselves. The Veltar have always protected the smaller civilizations in this region. If your empire falls, billions of innocent beings will die. Marcus returned his attention to the tactical displays, which is why, as of 6 hours ago, the Terran Defense Network has been authorized to reveal itself and offer full military cooperation to the Veltar Empire. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. The galaxy's balance of power was about to shift dramatically, and it was happening right here in this room. "You're proposing an alliance," Zarth said. "I'm proposing that we do what we should have done years ago, work together instead of hiding from each other." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the command center. A communications officer called out urgently. Massive Ravager fleet detected entering the outer rim. Estimated strength, over 300 vessels. As the Veltar military sprang into action, Marcus calmly walked to a communication console and began entering codes that shouldn't have existed on a Veltar system. "Marcus," Zarth called out. "What are you doing?" He looked back at her with that new, confident expression. "Calling in the cavalry. Princess, I think it's time you met the rest of my people." Space around the Veltar outer rim defense stations had been empty moments before. Now, reality itself seemed to fold and twist as massive shapes materialized from quantum space. The first thing that struck the Veltar observers was the size. Human warships were enormous, some nearly twice the length of the largest Veltar heavy cruisers. Their hulls were a deep black that seemed to absorb light, making them appear like tears in space itself. "By the ancestors," Admiral Velhan whispered as the tactical displays updated to show the new arrivals. "How many ships are there?" Marcus, still at the communication console, checked his readings. "First wave is 47 vessels from the 7th Terran Battle Group. Admiral Chun is commanding from the TNS Olympus." "Chun." Princess Zarth looked at her husband with new understanding. "A relative of yours?" "My sister, actually. She's been patrolling this sector for the past 2 years, waiting for authorization to make contact." The human fleet moved with a precision that impressed even the experienced Veltar military officers. Instead of the standard formation flying they were accustomed to, the human ships seemed to dance through space, each vessel moving independently while maintaining perfect coordination with the whole. "Their movement patterns," General Throkkar observed. "I've never seen anything like it." "Quantum linked AI coordination," Marcus explained. Each ship's computer is connected to the others through quantum entanglement. They can react and adapt as a single organism while maintaining individual tactical flexibility. On the main display, the Ravager fleet was visible as a dark mass approaching the outer rim. 300 black shapes moved in their typical swarm formation, ready to overwhelm any defensive force through sheer numbers. "Ravagers entering weapons range in 30 minutes, a tactical officer reported. Marcus activated his communication link. "Admiral Chun, this is Agent Marcus reporting. Permission to coordinate with local forces?" A new voice filled the command center. Female, crisp, and carrying the same underlying authority Marcus had displayed. "Permission granted, brother. It's good to hear your voice again." "Likewise, Sarah." Princess Zarth May I present Admiral Sarah Chun, commanding officer of the 7th Terran Battle Group. A holographic figure materialized next to the tactical display. Admiral Chun looked remarkably like Marcus, the same brown eyes and determined expression, but with the bearing of someone who had commanded starships in battle. She wore a uniform of deep blue with markings that indicated high rank in whatever military organization she represented. "Your Highness," Admiral Chun said, offering a respectful nod to Princess Zaratich. "I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but circumstances require immediate action." Admiral Zaratich managed to reply, still processing everything happening around her. "We welcome any assistance against the Ravagers. With your permission, I'd like to coordinate our attack patterns with your fleet. The Ravagers are using a new formation we haven't encountered before." General Throtkar stepped forward. "Admiral, our ships are powerful, but Ravager adaptive technology has always been difficult to overcome. What makes you think a combined assault will be more effective?" Admiral Chin smiled, and Zarth could see the family resemblance to Marcus clearly. "Because, General, we're not planning to fight them conventionally." The tactical display shifted to show both fleets in detail. The Veltar ships were impressive, sleek crystalline vessels armed with plasma weapons and protected by energy shields. But the human ships looked like something from another realm entirely. "Our vessels are equipped with dimensional phase technology," Admiral Chin explained. "We can shift partially out of normal space-time, making us nearly impossible to target while maintaining our ability to fire on enemies." "That's impossible," Admiral Velhan protested. "The energy requirements alone would exceed any known power generation system." "That would be true if we were using conventional fusion or antimatter reactors," Marcus said. "But humans developed zero-point energy extraction 30 years ago. We can literally pull power from quantum vacuum fluctuations." The implications hit the Veltar officers like a physical blow. Zero-point energy was theoretical in their science, unlimited power drawn from the fabric of space itself. If humans had actually achieved it. "There's more," Admiral Chin continued. "Our weapons systems use dimensional manipulation to bypass physical armor entirely. Ravager adaptive technology can't protect against attacks that phase through their hulls and detonate inside their ships." Princess Zarth studied the human fleet disposition with new respect. "Admiral, what do you need from us?" "Your ships excel at direct combat, Princess. If you can keep the Ravagers focused on conventional engagement, we can phase in behind them and eliminate their command vessels." Marcus moved to the central tactical console. "I can coordinate the communication between our fleets. I've spent 3 years learning Veltar tactical doctrine." As the two fleets prepared for battle, more human ships continued to arrive. Each new wave brought different vessel types, some sleek and fast, others massive and heavily armed, and a few that seemed to exist only partially in normal space. "How many ships do your people have?" General Throtkar asked with growing amazement. Admiral Chun consulted her tactical displays. "The Terran Defense Network maintains approximately 4,000 frontline vessels, with support fleets and planetary defense forces bringing the total to around 12,000 ships." The Veltar officers exchanged shocked glances. The entire Veltar Imperial Navy numbered roughly 3,000 vessels, and they considered themselves the dominant military force in the galaxy. "Admiral," Princess Zerlich said carefully, "why have your people remained hidden? With this level of technology and military strength, you could have revealed yourselves as equals rather than pretending to be primitive." Admiral Chin's expression grew serious. "Because, Princess, the galaxy is full of species that would see us as a threat to be eliminated rather than a potential ally. The Kethmore hegemony, the Christarch collectives, the Void Walkers, all of them have destroyed emerging civilizations they viewed as competition." Marcus nodded. "It's easier to build strength in secret than to fight off genocidal attacks while you're still developing. By the time anyone realizes what we're capable of, we're too strong to be eliminated easily. And now you're revealing yourselves to help us," Zarth said quietly. "We're revealing ourselves because the Ravagers represent a threat to everyone," Admiral Chin corrected. "Human policy has always been to protect innocent life, even when it requires significant risk to ourselves." The tactical displays suddenly flared with urgent alerts. Ravager fleet accelerating, a communications officer called out. They're approaching faster than anticipated. Admiral Chen's demeanor shifted immediately into combat mode. All ships, assume attack formation Delta 7. Phase generators to standby. She turned to the Veltar officers. Princess, are your forces ready? Princess RTH looked around the command center at her people. Warriors who had served the Empire faithfully for centuries, now preparing to fight alongside allies they'd never imagined existed. All Veltar ships, prepare for coordinated assault. Target priority to Ravager heavy units. She paused, looking at Marcus with new eyes. And, thank you for trusting us with the truth. Marcus smiled, and, for the first time since his revelation, it was the gentle expression she remembered. I never stopped trusting you, Zaratich. I just needed permission to show you who I really am. As the two fleets moved to intercept the Ravager assault, space itself began to ripple around the human vessels. They were shifting partially out of normal reality, becoming ghostly outlines that flickered between dimensions. The battle that was about to begin would determine not just the fate of the Veltar Empire, but the future of human-alien relations throughout the galaxy. And it would all center around a princess who had married a seemingly harmless human, only to discover he belonged to the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. The battle began unlike anything in recorded Veltar history. The Ravager fleet approached in their typical overwhelming formation, a dark tide of mechanical death sweeping toward the outer rim defense stations. Their ships were angular, brutal things that looked like they had been designed by a mind that understood only destruction. Black holes absorbed sensor scans, and the distinctive red glow of their weapon systems painted space the color of blood. Ravagers entering weapons range, reported Admiral Velhan. All ships prepare to engage. The Veltar fleet moved forward with practiced precision, their crystalline ships gleaming as they charged their plasma weapons. For a moment, it looked like a traditional naval engagement, two fleets approaching each other across the void for a direct confrontation. Then, the human ships disappeared. What happened to them? General Throkkar demanded, staring at empty space where 47 massive vessels had been moments before. They've shifted into dimensional phase, Marcus explained calmly. They're still there, just existing slightly outside normal space-time. The Ravagers won't be able to detect them. Princess Zarth watched the tactical displays with fascination and growing respect. Her husband's people weren't just technologically advanced. They were tactical innovators on a level she'd never imagined. The Ravagers reached the Veltar fleet and opened fire immediately. Crimson energy beams lanced through space, followed by swarms of self-guiding missiles. The Veltar ships responded with their own devastating plasma volleys, their shields flaring as they absorbed incoming damage. It should have been a massacre. 300 Ravager ships against just over 100 Veltar vessels. The numbers alone should have decided the outcome. But, as the battle developed, something extraordinary happened. The Ravagers began exploding from within. Internal detonations throughout the Ravager fleet, a tactical officer called out in amazement. Massive secondary explosions in their engine compartments and command sections. Marcus smiled grimly. Dimensional phase weapons. The human ships are firing through normal space into the Ravager hulls. Their adaptive armor can't protect against attacks that bypass physical matter entirely. Admiral Chen's voice filled the command center over the communication link, targeting their command vessels first. Without coordination, the swarm tactics become much less effective. The Ravagers tried to adapt, as they always did. Their ships began rotating randomly, hoping to confuse targeting systems. They launched clouds of sensor-disrupting particles and activated jamming fields. But none of it mattered against enemies they couldn't detect or target. This is incredible, Admiral Velhan breathed as another group of Ravager ships simply came apart from inside. They can't fight what they can't see. But watch their movement patterns, Marcus warned, pointing to the tactical display. They're learning. Ravager AI is analyzing the attack vectors and trying to predict where the human ships are based on weapon impacts. Sure enough, some Ravager vessels began firing at empty space. Not randomly, but with calculated precision based on the angles of the attacks hitting their comrades. A few shots actually struck something invisible, causing brief flickers as human ships were forced back into normal space for a few seconds. Clever, Admiral Chen admitted over the communication link. They're smarter than previous Ravager groups we've encountered. Princess, we're going to need your fleet to keep them distracted while we adjust our tactics. Understood, Princess Zarth replied. All Veltar ships, focus fire on the outer edges of their formation. Keep them spread out and unable to concentrate their analysis. The Veltar fleet surged forward with a ferocity that made Marcus proud to be allied with them. These weren't just skilled warriors. They were protectors defending everything they held dear, and their courage was magnificent to witness. Plasma beams carved through space, striking Ravager ships with enough force to shatter mountains. Veltar missiles, guided by tactical AI that could think and adapt mid-flight, sought out vulnerable points in enemy vessels. The crystalline ships moved like dancers, using their superior maneuverability to stay ahead of the lumbering Ravager vessels. But the Ravagers were adapting to both threats now. Their hulls began shifting configuration, trying to present angles that would deflect both conventional weapons and dimensional attacks. Their formation tightened, allowing damaged ships to be protected by healthier ones. They're learning too fast, General Throtkar observed grimly. If this continues, they'll figure out how to counter both our tactics. Marcus was quiet for a moment, studying the battle data with intense concentration. Then, his expression changed, becoming something harder and more determined than anything Princess Zarth had ever seen from him. Admiral Chun, he said into the communication link. Request permission to implement Protocol Omega. There was a long pause before Admiral Chun responded. Marcus, that's never been tested in actual combat. And the risks are acceptable compared to letting the Ravagers adapt to our technology. If they learn how to counter-dimensional phase weapons, they'll be ready for us when they reach human space. What's Protocol Omega? Princess Zarth asked. Marcus turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that was both apologetic and absolutely implacable. Something we hoped we'd never have to use. A weapon system so dangerous that we've only tested it once in an uninhabited star system. Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of resignation. Permission granted. All human vessels. Implement Protocol Omega. Full quantum destabilization authorized. The human ships began to reappear in normal space, but they looked different now. Energy patterns flowed across their hulls like living things, and space around them began to ripple with distortions that hurt to look at directly. All Veltar ships, retreat to minimum safe distance immediately, Marcus ordered with sudden urgency. Get at least 50,000 kilometers away from the Ravager fleet. What's happening? Princess Zarth demanded as her ships pulled back rapidly. We're going to destabilize the quantum structure of space-time in that region, Marcus explained. Every Ravager ship caught in the field will simply cease to exist on a fundamental level. The implications hit her immediately. You're going to tear holes in reality itself? Temporarily, yes. The quantum foam will restabilize after a few minutes, but anything caught in the destabilization field gets erased from existence. Admiral Velhan stared at the human ships in horror and amazement. That level of quantum manipulation, the technology required, it's beyond anything we considered possible. The human vessels began firing, but these weren't conventional weapons. Beams of pure energy that seemed to bend light itself struck the space around the Ravager fleet. Where they hit, reality began to unravel. Stars visible through that region of space flickered and distorted. The Ravager ships caught in the expanding field didn't explode or burn. They simply faded away as their atomic structure lost coherence with normal space-time. By the ancestors, General Throtkar whispered. They're not just destroying the ships. They're erasing them from existence entirely. The technology to do this, Admiral Velhan said in a shaking voice, you would have to understand the fundamental structure of reality itself. How long have your people been capable of this? Marcus watched the tactical display as the last of the Ravager fleet vanished into quantum dissolution. The theoretical framework was developed about 15 years ago. The practical application was perfected 5 years ago. This is the first time we've used it against a real enemy. Princess Zarth looked at her husband with new eyes, not with fear, but with awe and something approaching reverence. Your people You could destroy entire star systems with this technology. We could, Marcus agreed quietly, which is exactly why we've kept it secret. The ability to unmake matter at the quantum level isn't something that should be common knowledge. As the quantum destabilization field collapsed and normal space-time reasserted itself, the communication channels filled with chatter from both fleets. The Veltar crews were struggling to process what they'd witnessed, while the human crews were running post-battle analysis on their weapon systems. Admiral Chen's image reappeared on the main display. All targets eliminated. No Ravager survivors detected. Quantum field restabilization complete. Casualties? Princess Zarth asked. None on our side. The Veltar fleet performed magnificently. Your tactical coordination kept the Ravagers distracted long enough for us to implement Protocol Omega. Marcus moved to stand beside Princess Zarth's command chair. There's something else you need to know, he said quietly. This wasn't the main Ravager force. Our intelligence indicates this was a probe, testing our combined capabilities. The victory celebration that had been building in the command center died suddenly. How many more ships do they have? General Throckar asked. Conservative estimates suggest approximately 10,000 Ravager vessels are massing near the galactic rim, Admiral Chen reported. They're preparing for a final assault that will either break through our combined defenses or force them to find another approach vector. Princess Zarth stood slowly, her forearms working at different control interfaces as she began calling up fleet disposition reports. Then, we'll need to work together, won't we? Veltar and human forces combined into a single defensive fleet. Marcus smiled, and this time it was the gentle expression she'd fallen in love with, but backed by the quiet confidence of someone who belonged to the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Princess, I think that's exactly what my people were hoping you'd say. As reports came in from across Veltar space, and human commanders began coordinating with their new allies, Princess Zarth realized that everything had changed. Her harmless husband had revealed himself to be part of a civilization that could literally rewrite the laws of physics to defend their allies. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time since the Ravagers had appeared, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could actually win this war. The greatest alliance in galactic history had been forged in the crucible of battle, and it had all started with one human's patient, 3-year deception. Marcus Chun had played his role perfectly, and now the real fight could begin.